So I have this place in my house, and it's sort of a peaceful place. It's right off the kitchen, so you can get to the snacks quickly and easily. There's a little brass table surrounded by 3 chairs, a cabinet that my wife got me from IKEA that took her way too long to put together. She gave it to me for our anniversary. On the top of it's a little record player, and then inside of it are all the books that I'm reading. And when the kids, it's late at night, and they're getting ready for bed, and they're kind of finishing up homework, and there's almost a sense of quiet in the house. I just go sit down in one of those 3 chairs, pull out a book, and I read 20, 30 minutes. It's always interrupted by a question or two, for sure. But it's a peaceful place. It is a happy place. And then they go to bed, and the house gets totally quiet, and then I go hop on my bike, and I go for a ride. My little shorts, my cute little shorts. Nothing, no earbuds, no playlist, just me in a very uncomfortable seat riding in the dark for miles. And I just think, and I just pray, and I just think some more. It's a happy place. And then I have this Jeep, and in my Jeep there's a seat where I always sit, and I never have the top on, and I can just ride down the road, jam into whatever I want to bump to, and it just gets in the middle of this road where I can see nothing but the sky. Oh, it's a happy place. And then there's that seat right there, that one, right next to my beautiful wife, where FWC worship every single Sunday morning leads me into the presence of God so that I start my week giving Him worship and giving Him praise. It's a happy place. And then on Wednesday, way back there where God dwells, the last row of section 306. It's not the last row because that's COVID quarantined off, but the row right in front of it. Right in front of that row. I just sit and hear Pastor Reggie preach the gospel of life into my heart. And then we go and we pray. And I always walk along that back section, that back row back there. And I always pass Hannah, and then I'll pass Sierra, and then I'll pass Evan, and I'll pass Joshua. Just praying corporately. Not always private, personally, selfishly, corporately, where I'm praying for needs bigger than myself. And it's amazing to me how much I feel like I hear the voice of God back there in that happy place. Oh, and then I have this chair, this folding chair. You know, the camping kind. And I have spent more hours in that chair than any chair that I own. Because it's in that chair that I've watched my son play Little League baseball and high school baseball. I've watched my daughters swim, Kate and Claire, and I've watched little Lucy cheer, all in that little chair. I just sit in there. It's a happy place. And I have all of these happy places. But there's something common in every single one of those. And that is the presence of God. There was this time in the life of Moses where he had experienced the presence of God on the mountain. And God said, you've got to step down from the mountain and you have to go into the promised land where I am leading you. And Moses said, I don't want to go anywhere unless you go with me. Moses would rather sit on top of a mountain in isolation, eating nothing but manna from the ground, than step into the promised land where there was milk and honey if the presence of God wasn't going with him. And so he says, only if you will go with me. And so let's check it out. Exodus chapter 33, beginning at verse 17. It says, and the Lord said to Moses, this very thing that you have spoken, I will do for you. For you have found favor in my sight, and I know you by name. Moses said, please show me your glory. And he said, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim before you my name, the Lord. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. But he said, you cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live. And the Lord said, behold, there is a place by me where you shall stand on the rock. And while my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. So Moses was in a happy place. God was going to move him to a happy place. And then we see a whole nother happy place introduced in this text. But I want to start it off here at the top because he says, this thing that you have asked, you have found favor in my sight. It actually matters what we ask God for. There are many times that I think we find ourselves in a place of selfishness where we're always asking God for something that we want. And when we ask God for always the thing that we want, sometimes James, the brother of Jesus, said we ask amiss, and therefore we receive nothing that we have asked for. So it's important to notice that right out of the gate, what Moses asked for brought pleasure to God, so that God says to Moses, you have found favor. Because of what you asked for, you have found favor. It matters what we ask for. If we jump into the New Testament, there was a man named Simon. He had just gotten saved. He had just gotten baptized. And then he saw the apostles come down, Peter and John, and they were praying for people. And when they would pray for people, people would begin to speak in tongues and prophesy. And he saw that the power of God could be delivered from one person to another through the laying on of hands. And he said, I want this power. Give me this power. I'll pay you for it. He had a request. And Simon said, your money perish with you. What happened? He was asking for the right thing for the wrong reasons, and it did not bring pleasure to God, and he did not find favor. What we ask for matters. There's a group of Pharisees, and they said to Jesus, give us a sign. Jesus said, no sign is going to be given to you. Their request did not find favor with God. I know that we like to put it into the context of whatever we ask, it's just going to be done for us. No, whatever we ask according to his will and his name will be done for us. What Moses asked for was within the will of God, and it found favor with God. And so it does matter. And then he goes on, he says, please. So what he asked for the presence of God to go with him, he found favor with God. And then he goes on, he says, please show me your glory. Now, I love that word please there because it goes outside of sort of our just southern manners. It's not like a please, thank you kind of thing. It's a beseeching, a begging, a great desire. When he used the word please, what he meant was, I really, really want this. Please. Like this is something that I must have. I wonder how many of us say, God, please show me your glory. I wonder how many of us wake up, step into the house of God, and our request isn't something for us personally, but rather, God, show me your glory. And we're going to get kind of ethereal, and then I promise we'll land the plane. Because when we talk about the glory of God, the conversation gets sort of big, and it can get lost in application. But let's just stay big for a minute, and then we'll bring it in. How many of us ask for the glory of God? Please show me your glory. What is it that we want the most? What is it we ask for the most? What is our greatest desire? Are we the kind of person that's asking for the glory of God? Or are we the kind of person that walks into a room and is content to see other people experience the glory of God, and that makes us happy, but we stay afar off? He said, please show me. Please show me your glory. We should want to see the glory of God in every place where God has us. We should see the glory of God in our church. We should see the glory of God in our homes. We should feel the glory of God when we are at work. We should feel the glory of God driving down the road. The glory of God, the presence of God can be everywhere. But do we want to see it? There are people who will actually avoid going home because there's no glory there. They will stay at work longer, not because they have more to do. They're actually not getting any more done in a 60-hour week than they would have gotten done in a 40-hour week. But they stay there to avoid going home. We can check email at home. We can read about all the news at home. We can check our social media feeds at home. But we'd rather check them at work. because it's a happier place. By the time we wrap this whole thing up, what my greatest prayer for this series is that we understand every single place where God has us should be a happy place, where the presence of God is in every place. Every place. Church should be a happy place. There are people that say, I don't want to go to church. I don't want hypocrites at church. It's just an excuse. It's just, have you looked around? There are hypocrites everywhere. Have you been to Walmart lately? I mean, people act like they avoid church because they're like hypocrites. Let me tell you something about church. The best people on the planet are found in church. On our worst day, it's better than the world's worst day. And on our best day, it's better than the world's best day. So when I look around here, what I see are the best people in our community all assembled in the presence of God. Church is a happy place. I don't avoid the house of God because there are people in it. I run to the house of God for the people who are in it. You can find a reason. If you just start looking at people, you'll find a reason to go nowhere. You'll find a reason to never step out of your front door. I was at Olive Garden the other day. Olive Garden got a little bit of attention this week, so I'll just pile on. I was at Olive Garden the other day, me and my kids, and when we all go eat, my wife and my kids, there's a bunch of us. There's 6 of us. So, you take up space. And the nice thing that we kind of do is if they tell us like 30 minutes, we'll just stand there, all of us. And I find that it kind of speeds the process along. Party of 2, you're waiting. Scarborough party of 6, they're going to find somewhere for us. But anyhow, so there we are, and the guy says 1 to 15 minutes. Well, if it's going to be a minute, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to stand here. So I'm just standing, my kids are all standing, my wife, now she's actually she's the decent one of the household. Every house has one. She's kind of off to the side like she should be, and there we are, the rest of us in the way. And then the to-go lady says, you can't be here. I said, oh, where would you like me to go? She says, over there. So I go exactly where she told me, which is right in front of the door. Now nobody can get in, no one can get out. Now she comes by with her to-go bags. Where does she go? There I am. And she stomps around me, goes out and does her thing. I'm the one wrong, by the way. I hope you're hearing this story. She's actually not the one who's wrong here. They finally okay, go seat these people. We go sit down in the place that was actually wide open when we got there. I love that. I always love that. I sit down, and the guy shows up, and he's throwing stuff to the other end of the table. Like, he's not even going to set it down and kind of slide it. He's throwing straws, and they just throwing stuff. And I'm just sitting there like, this is fascinating. I am here to pay money. And I've been yelled at from the time I walked in the door. And please understand, I have every intention of going back to the Olive Garden. I'll keep going. I like the Olive Garden. We find reasons to not go to church. Oh, it's cold outside. Put on a jacket. Oh, it's raining. Get your umbrella. Oh, well, so-and-so, go sit on the other side of the church. Well, this one, I just don't like how it feels when I go. You know why we don't like how it feels when we go to church? Because the presence of God fills the room, and all of a sudden the Holy Spirit does the thing that he was sent to the earth to do, and he convicts us of sin. And conviction is sometimes uncomfortable. I realize that in our generation, we've decided to take the word conviction and call it condemnation. But please understand, when you've done something that you shouldn't be doing, and the Spirit of God is saying, stop that, that's not condemnation, that is conviction. When you did something that was stupid that you should not have done, and you repented before the presence of God, and he forgave you, and you feel guilty about it, that's condemnation. But when you're in the middle of something that you shouldn't be doing, and he says, stop it, that is conviction. And the reason why he convicts you is so that you won't keep doing the thing that you're doing, so that you'll find your way on a pathway to life rather than on a pathway to death. And if conviction makes you uncomfortable, then I pray it's always uncomfortable in this house. Do we want the glory of God no matter what? He said, please show me your glory. Now let's take a minute and just kind of look at what the glory of God, what Moses understood the glory of God to be, and then we'll kind of expand our thought. In Genesis chapter 31, we see Moses' great-great-grandfather, Jacob, son of Isaac, son of Abraham. Great-great-grandfather. Anybody ever know your great-great-grandfather? Most of us didn't. I actually knew my great-great-grandmother, and they called her Old Mom. Now, how would you like that to be your, family name? I love grandmothers get all these cool names, G-Ma, grandmother, we get cool stuff. Her name was just Old Mom. There was my dad, and then his mom was Gammy Joy, that's cool. And then her mom was Ma Mert, that's cool. And then there's just Old Mom. So Jacob was old father to Moses. So Jacob was working for his father-in-law. And in working for his father-in-law, God would just bless him no matter what. Jacob actually had a conversation with his wives, and he says, your dad doesn't look at me the way that he used to. He cheats me. He's changed my wages 10 times, this isn't working anymore, so we're going to have to leave. Now, when he said he has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times, here's what that looked like. Jacob was supposed to watch Laban's, he kept his flocks. He was a shepherd. Jacob was a shepherd. He kept the flocks of Laban. And then they had to decide what the wages would be. And so Laban would come in and he would say, okay, well, here will be your wages this year. When we breed the flock, you can have all the spotted animals. And then Laban would go remove all the spotted animals so that there would be no way that the flock would actually reproduce spotted animals. But then because of the power of God, it was fascinating. All that they would have would be spotted animals. And then he said, okay, well, no more spotted animals. Now it's going to be the striped. If you can have all the striped ones. And he'd go remove all the striped animals. And then the flock would bear a bunch of striped animals. It's fascinating how when the presence of God is with you, it doesn't matter where you are, you will be blessed. Now, I want you to understand something because this is something that I want to put out there for some of you. Sometimes we have the idea that the job is the problem. Sometimes we have the idea that the place is the problem, but I want you to understand, when God is with you, you'll prosper in any place where you are. That doesn't mean that you'll be wealthy. That doesn't mean that you're going to have a ton of stuff. What it means is where you are, you will be blessed, relatively speaking. So if you're trying to run from one place because you're not blessed there, thinking you're going to be blessed in another place, you might want to look inside. It might actually not be the place. It might be on you. It might be there's just a skill set that's not matching. If I'm not good at something and I'm doing it here, I can do the same thing not well over here, and guess what? I still won't be blessed. The problem wasn't the place. The problem was me. If my bad attitude costs me here, and I leave because I don't like these people, and I go over here and I bring my bad attitude with me, guess what? I'm not going to like these people here either. And then I'm going to go over here and my same bad attitude, I'm not going to like these people. This is how life works. And we've all seen it in everybody but ourselves, right? That's the thing. We see it in everybody else. I love sermons and people are like, boy, I hope they were listening to that. I hope we were all listening. So it's just a thought. Maybe this year if you're thinking there's no blessing here. God will bless you wherever you are. God blessed Jacob even when Laban was trying to cheat him. God blessed Joseph in jail. Joseph was in jail. And he was given leadership authority. Right? Like David, wherever David went, he was blessed in the city and he was blessed in the field. He was blessed in the country and he was blessed in his nation. He was blessed everywhere. So when the blessing of God is with you, please be confident that God will bless you. God will bless you. So he's in this place and Jacob just realized, it's not a blessing thing. He doesn't want me here anymore. I've asked him that we could go back to where my family came from. I feel like it's God's will for us. It's time for us to go. And then Laban's other kids, the boys, got really frustrated. And they say this in Genesis chapter 31, verse 1. Jacob has taken all that was our father's, and from what was our father's, he has gained all this wealth. In a place where he was cheated, in a place where his wages were changed 10 times, his reputation among everybody around was that he had gained much wealth. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because that word wealth there is actually kavod. That is the exact same word that we have in Exodus 33, where Moses said to God, "Show me your glory." So it's translated glory in Exodus, but it's translated wealth the very first time we see it in the book of Genesis. And the reason why that matters is because it's not talking about just the wealth that he gained from all the flocks, but rather that it's the blessing of God, that there was a glory that was on Jacob. Now, let's prove this out. I want you to take my word for it. If we go a little further in Genesis, we'll just stay in Genesis, chapter 34 and verse 29, we see this moment where the children of Jacob, some people had disrespected their sister, and so the boys went in there and took care of things. I always like stuff like that. Like, it's so human, right? Like, disrespect my sister and I will break you. I mean, that's just cool. Okay, just to me, it's cool. I guess I have a son and I have daughters, and I may or may not have given him permission to ever. Okay, never mind. That's a parent issue. We're going to get to that like week 3. So let's stay Genesis 34:29. So these boys, they went in there and they took care of business, and then it says this: all their wealth and all their little ones and their wives and all that was in their houses, the boys captured and plundered. The word wealth there is specific just to wealth, and it's not the same word. So it's the word kail. So it's wealth that's kail in chapter 34, but in chapter 31, it's wealth that's kavod, which is glory. I'm only saying this to say that in our English language, it's not as clear, but in the Hebrew, it was very clear that glory was a whole encompassing thing. It wasn't just your stuff. Let me tell you something. The devil shows up sometimes, he'll steal your stuff. And he'll take it and run off with it. But he can't take your glory. And because the blessing of God is with you, even though the devil walked off with something, he's got to pay it back 7 times later anyhow. So I'm not worried that he showed up and he took a job. I'm not worried that he showed up and took some stuff, because I know it's all going to come back anyhow, because the glory of God is with me. You can take wealth, but you can't take glory. So here we have this moment where Moses says to God, "Show me your glory." But please understand, he'd seen the glory of God. This is chapter 33. Let's back up to Exodus 16 and verse 6. It says, "So Moses and Aaron said to the people of Israel, 'At evening you shall know that it was the Lord God that brought you out of Egypt. And in the morning you shall see his glory.'" Verse 10, they looked towards the wilderness, and behold, they saw the glory of the Lord appear in a cloud. Now that's chapter 16. They all saw the glory of God. One of the things also I find fascinating, just a little side note here, it said in the evening, you're going to know that it was the Lord who brought you out of Egypt. Didn't they know it was the Lord that brought them out of Egypt? But it's interesting, they must not have known that it was the Lord that brought them out of Egypt, because they never saw God. All they saw was they saw the plagues. They saw the hail. They saw the anger of Pharaoh and his armies. All they saw were the temporal things. And it seems like they had begun to interpret all that they saw as just weather patterns, or they just saw it as just economics, or they just saw it as politics. And they were giving the glory to the politics and to the weather and to all the systems, and they were neglecting to give glory to God. Like somehow the Red Sea just parted because the wind blew right at the right space and they came across, and then the wind just shifted all of a sudden and all the water came back and encompassed Pharaoh's armies. They just thought, well, that's just the stuff. And he says, no, you're going to know that it was the Lord who brought you out of Egypt. Let me just remind some of you who made it through 2020. You didn't just get out because the government gave you a check or two. You made it out of 2020 because the Lord was with you. And it should always be the posture of the saints that when any good thing comes to them, our place is in his house, giving him glory for the goodness that he has shown us. I don't ever want to take credit for something that God did. One of the most miserable things in my life is if somebody comes up to me and they say, man, I really like that sermon. I'm like, thanks. Thank you, Jesus. I'm just like a recorder you push play on. It's all his word. It's not mine. I'm just some silly little human that can memorize the gospel. It's God that speaks through us. And when his word is spoken through us, we can't take credit for that. No, all the glory is his. All of it. Remember when Peter and John, they prayed for a man and he was running and he was healed like he was lame. And people were looking at me and said, why are you looking at us as if we did something? No. It was the power of Jesus Christ whom you crucified that brought this man to walking. Maybe if we'd be a little more humble, we might see more of God's movement. Okay, that was my side note. So back to the point. So in the middle of this, he says, they saw the glory. What does that mean? They saw the glory appear in a cloud, Exodus 16. Jump up to Exodus chapter 24 and verse 17. Now it says, now the glory of the Lord appeared like a devouring fire on the mountain. And so we understand that when they saw the glory of God, it was like this terrifying, consuming fire that was lighting the clouds up that was just something they had never seen before. We're not talking about a cloud that just popped a little lightning. We're talking about fire in a cloud. And it said it was a devouring fire. So Moses and all the people have already seen the glory of God. But then Moses says, show me your glory. I've seen your plagues. I've seen your fire. I've seen your cloud. I've seen all the terrifying stuff. I've seen all the stuff that says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. I've seen all that, the fear of the Lord stuff. Now could you show me your glory? I've seen your glory, but could I see your glory? There are some of us, all we've ever seen is the glory from afar off. We've only seen the consuming fire. We've only seen the terrifying fire. We've only seen the devouring fire. And it doesn't invite us to come closer because it scares us. So we're content to just stand out here and just see the glory from afar. But Moses, that's not what he was saying. What he was saying was, show me your glory. That part of you that I can approach. That part of you that I know is with me no matter what, even when I don't see you. Show me your glory. I want to be in your presence. And what does God say? Fine. All my goodness will pass before you. Was the glory of God terrifying? Absolutely. But it was so good. He said, I'll be gracious and I'll be merciful. I've seen the glory. I've seen the fire in a cloud. But he said, I want to see the goodness. I want to see the graciousness. I want to see the mercy of God. Please, please, please understand. The Lord is good. And his mercy endures forever. And sometimes when we become distant from him, we see the fire. And all we understand is the fire. And in the middle of seeing the fire, it's the God of glory who says, come on in and I'll show you my goodness. And I'll be gracious and I will be merciful. In other words, I will forgive you for the thing that I should punish you for, and then I will empower you to do the thing that you're not even capable of doing. This is what he said to Moses. I will not judge you for what I should judge you for, and I will empower you to go and do what you're not qualified to do. That was the goodness of God. In a moment. The goodness of God. And the same way that he saw the goodness of God today is the same way that we see the goodness of God. Nothing has changed. This is what I love the most about this text. How did Moses see the glory of God? He said, come stand by me on the rock. On the rock. Matthew chapter 16 and verse 16. Everybody's wanting to know who Jesus was. And then Peter got his chance. And it says, Peter replied, you are the Christ, you are the Son of the living God. And then Jesus said to him, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you. In other words, you didn't see this in a book. You didn't see this in the sky. You didn't see this in a friend. Flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter. Now, here's what I love. It said that he knew Moses by name. He said, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah. I tell you, you are Peter. There's something about God calling us by our new name. There's something about God calling us redeemed. There's something about God calling us blessed. There's something about God calling us wise. There's something about God calling us healthy. There's something about God calling us good. There's something about God calling us full of favor. There's something about God calling us by name. He said, I tell you, you are Peter. And then on this rock, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. They won't prevail. So all of the obstruction is coming. All the danger is coming. But he said, you just stand on the rock, and the gates of hell are not going to prevail against it. You say, yeah, Sean, but that's like the church. I mean, that's cool. I'm talking about my house. I'm talking about like where I dwell. Matthew 7, Jesus said, the same Jesus that said the gates of hell wouldn't prevail against the church when the church is built on the rock. Jesus that said that is the same Jesus who said, everyone who does these words, who hears these words of mine and does them. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does them. If we hear it and we do it, everyone who hears these words of mine and does them is like a wise man who built his house. Not God's house. He built his house on a rock. And the rains fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, but it did not fall. Why? Because it was founded on the rock. What does it look like when we build our house on the rock? See, there's something that has been very, very missing. Now we're going to just pry just a little. Man, it showed up in 2020. We're still dealing with it in 2021. But we're putting our trust in everything but Jesus. Everything but Jesus. John chapter 1 and verse 14 says, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen His glory. Glory is of the only one from the Father, full of grace and truth. What was it that Moses saw? Graciousness, mercy. Jesus, the rock, full of grace and truth. When we build things on Jesus, it works. Whatever isn't built on Jesus, when the wind comes, it blows it away. I want us to all realize whatever promises we were standing on in 2020 that we did not see, I'm not talking about you were asking God for a blessing and you didn't see the blessing in 2020, so you can see it now in 2021. I'm not talking about you were asking for a baby in 2020 and you still have opportunity to have a baby in 2021. I'm talking about the things that you said, this needs to happen, and then it didn't happen and it's not going to happen. I'm talking about that stuff. That stuff is the stuff that wasn't founded on the rock. And that was the stuff that we just wanted because we wanted it. That was just the stuff we wanted to get our way and we didn't get our way. And when we want our way and we don't get our way, then we start lashing out. It's kind of interesting how we behave when we're wrong. When it's founded on the rock, the Word says that the rains will come, the floods will rise, the wind will blow. The opposition is no different, whether you build your house on a rock or whether you build your house on the sand. It's the same mess that's coming at you. I just want you to know that building your life on the rock does not absolve you from the pain and the pressure of what's coming against you. It's coming. But here's the difference. The difference. How do we know? Because the rains came, and the floods came, and the winds came, but it did not break the house. The house stood. Why? Because it was founded on the rock. The things that I knew were going to happen that didn't happen last year were not founded on the rock. And I just have to deal with that personally. We all have to deal with that personally. Because when we build our life on the rock, the gospel, it's Jesus and it's Jesus only. The gospel. I got a letter the other day. Somebody was frustrated. They said, it's great. Like, let's take a stand on the gospel, but the gospel and the Constitution. There's no gospel and the Constitution. I told you I'm going to be ornery today. You're all thinking about it anyhow, so we might as well talk about it. It can't be the gospel and. It can't be the gospel and anything, because it's the gospel in China, and it's the gospel in Russia, and it's the gospel in India, and it's the gospel down in Mexico, and it's the gospel up in Canada, and it's the gospel all over to the islands. Like, it's the gospel. It's just the gospel. And when I stand on the gospel, my house doesn't fall down. When the church is built on the gospel, the church stands. When the church is built on anything else, guess what happens to the church? When the winds come, it blows the whole thing over. Why? Because he said, you build it on me or don't bother. Don't bother. I was praying yesterday, right down here. And I don't know if y'all could tell, but I can be really arrogant sometimes. So I'm just praying. And I'm just praying for today. And then I'm praying in the Spirit. And then all of a sudden, the tone of my prayers became more sorrowful. So now it doesn't sound like it's going to be a happy day, even though it's a happy day. But in me, it just became a sorrowful prayer. And then I began to pray not with my spirit, but with my understanding, so that I knew what I was praying. And I just began to hear from God, me. But I think it's us, that we have to repent for our bad behavior. We have behaved badly. And it's not okay. And if we think that God's just going to show up, and it's just going to move, and it's just going to speak, and it's just going to reveal, and it's just going to heal, and it's just going to save and baptize in the middle of a mess, judgment begins right here. It doesn't begin anywhere else. And let me just tell you where I have been. So I can only speak for me. You may not feel any of this, and I'm not talking to you. But here's where I have been. I have been an arrogant, pompous jerk. Because I have watched phony prophecies fail, and I have laughed. And I've stood like I'm something. I've watched ideas descend into absolute chaos and almost laughed as if, see, you always knew that was going to happen. As if I knew something. And I've judged my brothers and I've judged my sisters with an arrogant, pompous heart because I didn't agree with them. And I'm wrong. I'm wrong. And maybe you're on the other side. Maybe you're on the other side where you've been wrong this way, and you've been complaining about how stupid everybody else is, and how can't anybody see what you see, and you can't even believe what's going on. And we're all just spewing this utter nonsense, and we have forgotten the Spirit of God that dwells in us is full of grace and is full of mercy. Let me tell you something. We can keep wanting to look for the fire in the cloud if we want to. But the fire in the cloud kept all the nations away. The fire in the cloud kept even the children of Israel, the people of God, off the mountain. I want you to understand that the judgment fire of God did not bring anybody to the mountain. What was it that brought him to the mountain? The graciousness and the mercy of God. And who are we to just be slinging insults and accusations at people we don't even know? Who are we? And then we expect the grace of God to move in us. We expect the power of God to show up and flow. You know why I'm a Pentecostal? You know why I'm a charismatic? Do you know why? I could just find myself sitting in any Reformed church listening to the gospel of God and never seeing any of the glory of God. I could do that. Trust me, I'd fit in just fine. I love to read. I love lectures. I'm a boring person. I would fit in just fine in a boring church. But there's just something attractional about the power of God. There's something that we cannot do without called the power of God. And so when the Spirit of God moves in a church, when the Spirit of God moves among His people, all of the sudden there is wisdom where there wasn't wisdom. There's knowledge where there wasn't knowledge. There are miracles where there were not miracles. There are healings where there was not healing. There are tongues and interpretation of tongues. There are prophecies. There's faith that you can't even imagine that will give you the confidence to go do what you would never ever be able to do without it. So I could sit in a chair and I could just study, or I could immerse myself in the fullness of the presence of God. And so that's what I've chosen to do. That's why I find myself in churches like this one. Because it's where I want to be. I want to be in the middle of the power of God. I want to see the grace of God. What is the grace of God? It is His glory. It is His power that is in the sanctuary that transforms lives. Is fire coming? Is judgment coming? Is it going to consume all the imbeciles? For sure. But how stupid am I to get so excited about that? Because it's terrifying. And it's consuming. And my joy should be in the goodness of God. My joy should be, God, what do you want to do for people? He's going to judge what He's going to judge. And this is where we get into this part of our Christianity, where we're told, no, you do the right thing no matter what, because God's fighting your battles. God will be the judge. God will judge what is wrong. If something needs to be judged, let me tell you something, God will judge it. There is nothing going on in our world right now because we didn't pray enough. We've prayed until our eyes are red. We have prayed until we have no voice. The church has prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. And our world still looks like a chaotic mess. But what are our prayers for? Is it to change everything around us that's all going to get judged and burned one day? Or is our prayers for the goodness and the mercy and the fullness and the grace and the power of God to be in our homes, to be in our church, to be in our work, to be in our person? So when people see us coming, they don't see another conspiracy theory about to come blabber nonsense to them. When people see us coming, it's not another political argument. When people see us coming, it's not a judgmental dork. When people see us coming, it's somebody who walks and moves in the fullness of the presence and the goodness and the grace and the mercy of God. Like when they see us, what do they see coming? When they're feeling down, who are they going to text? When they're feeling down, whose social page are they going to? Are they coming to ours because it's where they find faith and hope and healing? Or are they going to somebody else's? So I boldly said, God, forgive me for my arrogance. Why? Because God resists the proud, but He gives more grace to the humble. It's really just a matter of what do we want to see? Like, what do we want to see? Do we want to see the glory of God? Do you want to see the glory of God in your household? Do you want to see the glory of God in your church? What do you want to see? Then we have to stand on the rock. And the rock it's just Jesus. It can't be Jesus and. When I stand on the rock, I see His glory. I don't stand on His glory. I don't stand on revival. I don't stand on healing. I don't stand on faith. I don't stand on miracles. I don't stand on leadership. I don't stand on benevolence. I don't stand on justice. I don't stand on mercy. I don't stand on grace. I don't stand on family. I don't stand on friends. I stand on the rock. And when I stand on the rock, I see justice, and I see mercy, and I see grace, and I see healing, and I see power, and I see miracles. Why? Because I'm standing on the rock. Well, is it miracles or is it healing? Yes. Is it grace? Is it mercy? Yes. Is it faith? Is it works? Yes. Why? Because it's everything that I see when I'm standing on the rock. So what do we want to see? What do we want to see this year? I want to stand on the rock and see the glory of God.